Hey, what's up, folks? We're back out here for another video. Now, I was going to do something special today. We're going to call it Forage Fridays, where I go out and I find something in the woods that's edible, and I either eat it out there or I bring it home and show you how to prepare it. But bad storm came through earlier today, knocked our power out twice. So I said, to hell with it. I know all kinds of stuff I could show folks. Now, let's get into it. So, people that get lost in the woods, they usually die from three things. Exposure, cold, too hot. No water, dehydration's a serious factor when you're out in the woods. And hunger, all right? But the sad thing is that sometimes people perish and they had food all around them. They had no idea that they were basically setting in a bounty of food. And one of the things that is most common, you probably got them around your house right now, your backyard, not too far from you, are pine trees. Now, they're everywhere. Pine trees are everywhere. Now, everything has a downside. Now, for your area, you might have Norfolk pine, yew pine, to name a couple. I will post up pictures of these pines, but I implore you, do a little bit of research before you try this method. Make sure the pine trees in your area are safe and they're not toxic. And there's a ton of them. Most of the pines you encounter, totally fine for eating, for consumption. But just make sure. And to help you with that, I shared a video yesterday for a free app called Seek by iNaturalist. We're not going to get into that heavy right now, but if you download that free app, you can start discovering things and get positive identification, or you could use other methods, but just make sure that what you're practicing with or trying, because what I'm about to show you is not that bad. Make sure you're doing your due diligence and you're not going to eat something that's toxic, okay? Now, the pine tree, every bit of it's edible. People know pine nuts. They sell pine nuts in about every grocery store there is. Pine needles, pine bark, and the pine pulp. It's all edible. And the cool thing about pine is it's a good source of fiber, but the best feature is the vitamin C content. It has 8 to 10 times, I figure these numbers are based on average, 8 to 10 times more vitamin C than your orange. That's pretty good survival food if you ask me. Now, there's a couple different ways of obtaining it. You can get your knife and cut up the pine needles real fine, put it in some hot water, steep it. You could strain it. You don't have to strain it, and then enjoy your pine needle tea. You could kind of do the same with bark. The pine nuts ain't too bad. But the method that I'm attracted to most is because it's basically a twofer, all right? You remember how I told you in my go bag video, always keep some of those $1, $2 ponchos you can get at any big box store, a couple extra little spools of 550 cord. Well, what I'm about to show you is a good way to use those two items. One of those big ponchos can make several little pouches or bags with if you had to. All right, because this method involves finding a pine tree, whether a short pine tree you could bend all the way down and put your bag over it and then kind of just tie the top down temporarily. And then once you use it and you take the bag off and you get what you need, the pine tree is just fine. You don't have to destroy anything at all. Or you could take a big pine, like this one right here next to me. It's got limbs hanging down, and tie your bag on one of the down hanging limbs. But I've noticed the tops of pines, there's a lot of moisture in there. You'll get a lot more water out of it with the method I'm going to show you. So, it's pretty simple to do. I'm going to cut you off so I can turn the camera around here, and we'll get right after it. All right, folks. So what we have here is a bag. Actually, I didn't use my poncho because I had this empty ice bag I found as I was leaving the house. It was still in my cooler. So I brought that with me. And what's cool about this bag is it already has cordage on it. It's long and rectangular, which is perfect for this method. So what you want to do, let me step back here a little bit, is bend your limb down a little bit. I used an extra roll of 550 cord to just tie it to this little tree right next to it, just to keep the limb hanging down. All right, and what happens, let me add something real quick. This works in a hot, warmer environment, and it works even faster if you can do it in the sun. Now, the sun was on this bag for a little bit. This is just a demonstration, but as you can see, I've already got a bunch of condensation in there. It might have been maybe 30 minutes so far, and I've already got a little bit down in the corner of my bag. What you want to do, grab it, shake it a little bit, and your little droplets will start to form down in the bottom. Now I got some sticks in there, but there is some water. Now, if you do this in the sunshine and you leave it for a few hours, depending on how much foliage you're able to fit in your bag, you could get anywhere from like a half a cup to a cup. But it depends on the pine tree, it depends on the limbs you're using, how much of these green needles are on it. Which, like I said, a little short pine tree is the best way to go because the top's real thick and rich. Bend it down. But always remember to take your trash home, folks. If you're going to try this, always make sure to, once you harvest your water, don't put the bag back on there and leave it or anything. You want to keep your tree alive because it'll keep producing for you. Now, what's good about this is if you have a poncho, you could cut one of those ponchos up and make 4 or 5 little bags. And you can see, survival is all about your conservation and usage of energy. Now, if you're in an abundant area where you have plenty of food and water, you don't have to worry as much about energy conservation. But if you're in a place that you're really struggling and pine's basically one of the most bountiful things you have, well, what you would want to do is you would want to work when it's cooler, out of the sun, bag up your trees, get them set up, go find somewhere in the shade, conserve your energy, let the sun do its work, and then come back and collect it all. All right, that's very important that you learn to conserve your energy. You don't want to push too hard and too far without knowing really what your next step is. There's been times that I've walked and ventured way out into the woods, not paying attention to time. And next thing I know, it's getting dark and I got a lot of ground to tread and I don't have a flashlight. That's happened to me before. It's happened to me fishing. It's happened to me hunting. So keep that in mind, folks. Your conservation of your energy is most important. So let's say you go sit in the shade for 3 or 4 hours and you wait, you come back, you collect all your water that's condensed in the bag, shake it all down. Well, after that, you can add even more pine needles to it by just stripping off some pine needles off a branch, putting them in a little pile like I did here on my little toolbox, and chop it up fine. You can leave the little stems on there if you want, but my preference, because I have tried this method a few times, chop it up real fine and just let it steep. All right, and then you will have a delicious and nutritious drink, and it'll keep you alive. So folks, I really hope you enjoyed that today. Hey guys, I'm going to be leaving a link in the description for all of the toxic pines that we have in the world. I added a couple of pictures here as well. I hope you enjoy this method, and pine trees can save your life. Peace.